The worst mistake that the United States has ever made, in my opinion, was going into the Middle East. It's a quagmire. We're up to close to $8 trillion, and we're bringing our folks back home.
Okay, so right now we have breaking news from U.S. President Donald Trump addressing the Turkish military advancing against the Kurds in northern Syria. In this video, we're going to talk about a lot of the things that the mainstream media is not talking about, since it really seems that it's only Donald Trump and U.S. Senator Rand Paul who are against the foreign entanglements that previous leaders like Obama got us into. Interestingly enough, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez actually agreed with this plan, but now, since it actually happened, she's totally flip-flopping, which we're going to get into in this video, plus a lot more about this latest disinformation and propaganda spin trying to, of course, prop up U.S. interventionism. And this is why hashtag Kurds betrayed by Trump is trending right now in the United States. And again, emotions are running high, and that's why we're going to try to bring back some logic into this argument that's happening right now, as well as counter some of the mainstream media narratives out there right now. All of this, plus a lot more on an independent media organization that is getting scroogled. Wow, I haven't used that word in many years, but essentially, yes, we're getting scroogled, and YouTube is not showing our videos to anyone, even people who I've been getting a lot of complaints about that click the notification button, that are subscribed, that they're just not getting any of it. A lot of people are being unsubscribed, and usually when we have record high numbers this time of year, we're somehow having the lowest numbers we ever had on this YouTube channel. So your support right now is more critical than ever, and you could easily support us on subscribestar.com/wearechange. The link will be in the description below, because without your support, we would not be able to survive. And only because of you getting involved, you donating as little as $1 for all the free videos we give you, for all the free content we give you, for all the times I risked my buttocks on the ground, only because of you are we able to be here. So thank you again for considering supporting us. And now to the news that is dominating headlines everywhere, with a mainstream media narrative being pushed against Donald Trump, with criticism against him pulling some troops out of a specific region in the Middle East. Now, if you watch this YouTube channel, you know that we're not afraid to criticize Donald Trump on core issues and values that we see as important to us. But this issue is far more complicated than just pro and anti-Donald Trump, and I do believe that the mainstream media predominantly has it wrong here. Now, as we're speaking, the Turkish military has launched an offensive into northern Syria with airstrikes and actual boots on the ground in what they're calling Operation Peace Spring. And why would they? Again, this makes... I guess they're just trying to be special and ironic here, because there's definitely nothing peaceful. So far as this report is being made, we are hearing about one casualty. They are saying that this is an operation to, quote, neutralize terror threats. And of course, for Turkey, that means going after their long-term enemy, the Kurds, which they have been fighting for hundreds of years. Historically, the Kurds and the Turks have been at each other's throats, and this fight and this invasion was definitely a long time coming, and has been mainly built up after a policy by Barack Obama that trained, funded, and armed the Kurds in this long-term conflict, also isolated Turkey away from its kind of Western allies. It made them realign more with Russia's goals. But essentially, this was something that was being wound up for years now, ever since the United States decided to have intervention in Syria. And we need to remember here, it was the United States government under Barack Obama and then Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton that decided to fund and armed any rebel groups inside of Syria, including Wahhabist groups that turned out to be, hey, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, and other crazy Wahhabists that blow stuff up all over the Western world. Yes, for some reason we didn't see that much of an outcry by the mainstream media that's detesting troops moving away from northern Syria now, but that makes you wonder a little bit here. But again, it's important to understand here, the United States, under Barack Obama, decided to intervene by throwing a lot of arms, money, even CIA operators to, of course, train and arm a lot of the rebellions in Syria against the Syrian government, against the secular government that allowed all religions to live there, supporting Wahhabists that, of course, want to kill anyone who doesn't believe in their version of Islam. And because of U.S. military airstrikes and involvement in the region, the Kurds have been able to amass a massive buildup along the Turkish border. And if it wasn't for the U.S. intervention, the Kurds wouldn't be as strong, wouldn't have as much territory, wouldn't be on the Turkish border if it wasn't for the United States. Now, with Donald Trump's latest actions, we have to understand the troops only moved south, still in Kurdish territory, still in Syria. Many Kurdish people and rebels are, of course, also leaving that region, and we're most likely going to have a situation like we had in Afrin, northern Syria, where Turkey comes in and occupies northern Syria. And it looks like with the current movements that we are seeing that they will be able to control this area without any major contention, since a lot of the Kurdish people are leaving that specific region as we are speaking. Now, the reaction from Washington, mainline Washington, is that Erdogan will pay a heavy price for this latest action, and the Turkish government will be sanctioned, as it previously was before by U.S. President Donald Trump, who has threatened such action and now is saying that this is a, quote, bad idea when talking about the Turkish military operation. Now, this, of course, puts the Kurds in a very difficult situation where most likely they will have to align themselves with the current Syrian government or, of course, with Russia if they wish to end this current conflict and still regain some sort of power. And what's really important to understand here, and what you're not being told in the Western media, is that the Syrian government previously went to the Kurds and said, look, you're on our territory. This is the Syrian government. Let's figure out a way to work together, and we will protect you against Turkey. And the Kurds, of course, declined Syria's offer and decided to double down with their alliance with the United States. And now with the United States moving back, it's important to understand that they will most likely have an alliance with the Syrian government that will allow them to keep some sort of sovereignty, but still allow Syria to regain control of some of their regions as well. And it's important to understand here, the United States didn't completely withdraw from Syria. So we have to understand here, the U.S. troops, and again, there's not many of them, they just moved further south near the oil fields. And that still, there's a limited operation by the U.S. military forces in Syria, with, of course, Kurdish region. And as Partisan Girl pointed out herself, she points to a lot of the bigger hypocrisies, especially in the mainstream media, about how many of the neocons who are running a lot of these narratives that you're hearing on media, that they aren't really afraid of the Kurds being genocided. They're more afraid of the Kurds joining Assad and Russia, with U.S. entanglements being over, with the United States moving back and not being entangled in the Middle East. That's really the major worry of the neocons and the prostitutes that work for them, because that's essentially the arguments that they're making. And they're using a lot of emotions right now to push for that. And I have to say, I agree, personally, in my own opinion, with Donald Trump and also Rand Paul on this decision. I agree on the campaign promise that Donald Trump ran on when he said the United States should not be involved in foreign entanglements in the Middle East that is costing the country trillions of dollars, building up the military-industrial complex, and creating more terrorism all around the world by supporting Wahhabists in Saudi Arabia. Again, he promised all of that, and he really hasn't delivered really up until this moment. Other than that, he's been kind of bipolar and spastic, and very, very, very few times has he gone against the Washington neocon orthodoxy. But since the election is coming up, I do believe that this was a politically motivated move by Donald Trump to keep some of his campaign promises, to show his supporters that he is still with them somewhat. And this is why we're seeing this kind of back and forth dance by Donald Trump, who previously announced in April of this year that he would be withdrawing all troops from Syria. It was a major announcement that shocked me, surprised me, and then it just never happened. Then everyone was left scratching their head like, yeah, he said he was going to do this, and he didn't. We even had Rand Paul and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, even Ilhan Omar, Mike Lee, and other people praise Donald Trump for this verbal move that he said he was going to do, that he still didn't do yet. But very interestingly enough, the Neocon coffers and the military-industrial complex has many deep webs within Washington, D.C., and seeing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the woman of the people, the former waitress, who again praised Donald Trump for verbally saying he was going to do this. Now when Donald Trump is doing this, she's mocking him and attacking him for pulling some of the troops away from northern Syria and attacking him because of it. What two-layered, two-faced, hypocritical, immoral, non-virtuous nonsense is Miss Cortez smoking to forget that she was one of the people that praised Donald Trump for such actions that he finally acted on? And again, people are just doing whatever is popular, and it's just utterly ridiculous. And we have to understand, when we're watching the mainstream media, when we're consuming the weaponized information, the disinformation, only one side of the argument, arguing for keeping U.S. troops in the Middle East because it's somehow safe. Now, we have to understand, geopolitically, what happened was, in my opinion, proverbially a Band-Aid being ripped off really quickly. The tensions between the Kurds and the Turks have been building for a very long time. But we're talking about decades and decades of animosity, of hatred, of war that has happened between the region. With the United States pumping up one specific side, we are only pumping up an inevitable conflict. With this proverbial ripping of the Band-Aid, yes, there will be some casualties. Yes, there will be some kind of conflict. But overall, to the larger extent, this will bring bigger peace to the region because it will settle something that has been building and growing and fostering for a very long time, and it's going to end with us not being involved there, creating a worse situation. The United States geopolitically needs to work with Turkey, a NATO ally in that specific region, even though they are, some would say, deplorable in their geopolitical nature, especially in their humanitarian nature. But still, there needs to be some semblance of diplomacy, of negotiations. And when the mainstream media keeps screaming about the doom and gloom, specifically now their major loving talking point is that so ISIS fighters are going to be released. ISIS fighters are going to be everywhere. They're going to be reemerged. Where were you, mainstream media, when Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and the CIA and the Pentagon were sending them money, arms, and training them? What were you doing? No, you were shut about it. We, as independent media, were talking about it. We, as independent media, are being punished because of that. We're the ones being censored, and you're the ones somehow still being promoted by YouTube, being pushed forward, being recommended, being played after our videos. When you were flat out wrong, when you sat on your buttocks and didn't call out the biggest injustice that was happening in the Middle East, yeah, how does that make any sense at all? It doesn't. And now this fear-mongering, again, and if you look at the other side of the argument here, as again the partisan girl points out, are the Kurds that much of psychopathic crazy people to release ISIS if they don't get their way? No, I don't think they are, but this is the kind of argument that could counter all the other bullcrap hooey that we're hearing in the mainstream media. So yeah, overall, for this time, the mainstream media is totally wrong, and Donald Trump, he's in the right here. That's just the way it is. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below if you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm right. I love to hear your feedback. I love to hear the bigger, larger discussion that's happening surrounding these important issues. I don't always have the right answers, but I always try to get the right answers by listening and understanding all the sides and arguments. And if you think I did that, share this video, because YouTube hell won't. Yeah, it's absolutely sometimes devastating. I'm trying to keep myself going. You guys watching all the way up until now, you guys sharing, you guys commenting, upvoting, means the world to me. So again, love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.